In episode 5, it is a month after the team lost to Nate in West Ham, and their form has gotten worse and worse. They are on an unbelievable skid. Everyone's pretty pissed off, and everybody thinks they have the reasons on why the team's playing so badly, except Ted. He doesn't seem all that mad about it. He just figures it's a bad stretch and they'll fix it. But Rebecca is furious. She storms into the coach's office right after the latest game and says, "Are we ever going to win again?" It's an attitude that Ted hasn't really seen much, so he gets a little concerned, honestly, and he tells her, "Yeah, we're actually talking about it right now, about some strategies. We'll fix this thing." Once she leaves the office, she heads to go grab some coffee by herself, and she ends up running into her ex-boyfriend, John. He's doing quite well. Actually, he's engaged, and he thanks Rebecca because if she never broke things off with him, he never would have met his fiancée. His fiancée, of course, agrees with this, thanking Rebecca as well, and says that John is her shite in nining armor. And that freaks Rebecca out because that is what the medium said. It didn't make sense at the time, and now Rebecca hearing it, it's as if everything is coming true. First the green matchbook, and now this. So it really changes her mood up. For the rest of the day, it's all she can focus on. But back over with the team, they're pretty confused as well. It has nothing to do with shite in nining armor. It has to do with how Nate ended up getting the model Anastasia. The guys don't know that Rupert set up that date. But that date has ended up making the tabloids. So it's circulating that Nate and Anastasia are currently dating. In reality, they only met that one time. It's not much. And in fact, Nate didn't even ask for her number. Rupert's assistant walks into Nate's office and gives it to him, saying, "My friend was pretty surprised you didn't ask for this, so you might want to call her." And Nate does that, and they do, in fact, set up a date. Nate takes Anastasia to that restaurant, the same one with the hostess that he's been crushing on. He feels like it might impress her, make her jealous a little bit. But Nate's actual date, Anastasia, is not impressed at all. In fact, she finds the place pretty drab and dreary. Nate explains to her why that restaurant means so much to him, but she just doesn't care, and she uses an excuse to get out of there. Nate has to watch as Anastasia hops in a convertible with the rest of her model friends as "Wake Me Up Before You Go" blasts in the background. Apparently, it wasn't just something from Zoolander. Models really do this. But it leaves Nate in the restaurant all by himself. Jade, the hostess that Nate's been crushing on, comes over with the baklava that he ordered, and he mentions how he can't eat it alone. So she actually sits down, and the two finally have a conversation. And it seems like it goes pretty well. So this night that looked like a disaster for Nate ends up turning around pretty quickly because the girl that he actually wants to date finally seems interested in him. Back with Nate's former boss, Ted, he, along with Beard and Roy, are trying to figure out how they're actually going to get back in the win column. They're going through tactics, and even Trent Krim chimes in with a tactic, but he thinks that won't work. The problem, ironically, is Zava. The guys are just kind of stuck watching him do everything. While it worked in the beginning, it's no longer working, and they're concerned. But Ted really gets concerned when he sees a message from Michelle telling him that Henry had a bullying incident at school. Michelle just kind of wanted to keep him updated on what's going on. But this really throws Ted for a bit. He feels like if he were at home in Kansas, it never would have happened. So he's going to try to set up a time to talk to Henry one-on-one about the situation. The next day, things don't get better for Ted. He doesn't know it, though, but Leslie goes up to the office and tells Rebecca, "I think we need to consider letting him go." And it doesn't bring Leslie any joy to do this. In fact, he putters through trying to say it. He hates the idea of letting Ted go. And Rebecca hates it as well. She feels like the club will eventually get back in the win column. But Leslie just mentions the fact that, hey, if we continue down this road, it is something we need to consider. And it's the first time since Ted has shown up and Rebecca's actually got to know him that letting Ted Lasso go has even been brought up in conversation. Rebecca isn't really thinking, though, about firing Ted. She just can't shake what this medium said. And the fact that things are happening is troubling her even more. So she heads to the doctor to find out if it's even possible that she can have children. And when she sits down with him, he says, "Yes, actually, it's very possible. I treat women like you all the time. But just to be sure, we'll run some tests and make sure that you can, in fact, have kids." So Rebecca goes through the battery of tests, and she's hoping to get the updates the next day. Back with the club, they're a little frazzled too. Has nothing to do with mediums. It has to do with their poor play. And the fact that they're playing the best team in the league next, Man City. It seems like a foregone conclusion that they're going to lose this one. And even Sam's usual positivity isn't working on the club. Jamie actually has to stand up and say, guys, we're good too. We're in a bit of a rut, but stop acting like we're not talented and we can't hang with that club, because we can. And Zava stands up after Jamie and agrees with him. He looks around the room and says, I know that in my heart and in my bones that there is no opponent that this team cannot conquer. You will win not because of me, because you guys will work together. And together you can achieve anything. This really pumps up the group, and they're ready to take it to Man City the next day. But Man City really isn't on Ted's mind at the moment. When he gets home, he finally gets to FaceTime Michelle, and she tells him some troubling news about the bullying situation. Up until this point, Ted thought it was Henry who was bullied. No, it was Henry who was doing the bullying. Ted wants to talk to him because he's troubled by this, but Michelle says he's at the park right now. Jake thought it'd be a good thing to get outside and get some fresh air. So now, not only does Ted know that his son is being a bully, but he knows that his son is getting this fatherly advice from his former therapist. For Ted, this is his hell. But he does have to forget about it because the next day they have the big match against Man City. Before they go out, Beard and Roy give Ted some words of encouragement because they can tell that his mind's not really in it. They then have to go out to the pitch, but there's one person missing, and it's Zava. He just didn't show up, and no one quite knows where he is. So Colin's back in the starting lineup, but everybody's wondering where the team's best player is, including Ted. They're going to have to go this one without Zava, and it doesn't go their way. They get absolutely hammered again. When Rebecca gets back up to her office after the game, she finds out from Leslie where Zava was because word has gotten out that he's hinting at retirement. Before she can even process this information, she gets a phone call from her doctor with the update. It's hard to really tell what news she gets because all she says is, yes, right, that's what I thought. She does seem kind of thrown off by what she hears on the other end of that phone. She calls up Keely, but Keely doesn't answer because Keely had a really busy day at KJPR. It turns out Jack does like her. She actually sides with Keely in a debate between Keely and Barbara on the future of the company. Barbara thinking that they should expand and Keely wanting to stay boutique. And at least Keely has gained a friend in Jack because she's losing one in Shandy. Shandy's still pissed off about the whole banter thing. So yeah, she's still mad and her attitude sucks. Jack hears all of this, and once Shandy leaves, Jack tells Keely how she could appropriately fire Shandy, which is something that Keely hadn't thought of. But once Keely gets back from lunch, Shandy makes her own grave because Barbara comes in to let her know that Shandy called up a client at 4 a.m. and was pretty harassing to them. It caused the client to fire KJPR. And that is just the straw that breaks the camel's back, and Keely has to let Shandy go. And Shandy does not take it well. She tries to pull a Jerry Maguire, storming out to the sales office and saying, all right, I'm starting my own firm. Who's with me? And no one really is. She leaves, but she eventually comes back, and as a parting gift, she puts a baby goat in the conference room, which craps all over the place, stinks up the entire office, and forces Keely and Jack to miss the Richmond match. This allows Jack and Keely to bond, though, and boy, do they ever bond. As they drink some of Shandy's alcohol that she hid around the office, Keely eventually kisses Jack, and it leads to the two hooking up in the office. But when they're hooking up, Keely misses Rebecca's phone call, and in that moment, Rebecca really needed Keely because she needed somebody to talk to about what she heard from her doctor. On top of it, her club is in shambles. After the match, Ted's mind was still focused back home in Kansas, and as he stood at the Pyramid of Success, he couldn't stop thinking about it, and he could feel a panic attack coming on. He snaps out of it, though, when he hears his phone ring, and it's finally Henry. He's finally able to talk to him one-on-one. Henry owns up to his mistake and says that he's made good with the kid that he bullied, and they set up time later that night where they can play video games together online. But as Ted is talking to Henry out in the locker room, Leslie is informing the team of the unfortunate news that Zava has retired, and then Zava makes a video statement. He basically says that he's done with football, he's played his last match, and he's going to live his days on a farm with his family. This news is heartbreaking to some, mainly Danny Rojas, who really grew attached to Zava. Ted, who knows about the news at this point, walks out to address the team, but he doesn't address Zava. He just tells them that they'll get this thing back on track. There's no practice. He basically acts like it's business as usual. Until Sam brings up Zava, and it kind of forces Ted to address the elephant in the room. Ted says that Zava was great, but he wants guys that want to be here. And clearly Zava didn't. He knows that deep down, they can win with the current team that they have. There's no reason they can't. And all they need to do is believe it. And as he says that, the believe sign once again comes down because it was never fixed. All the players think it's a sign. And Ted says, no, you're right, it is a sign. Guys, it's just that. It's just a sign. He grabs it and starts tearing it up. He turns to everybody and says, belief doesn't just happen because you hang something on a wall. Belief happens because of what's inside of you. A lot of time, you have so much crap inside of you that crap gets in the way of the belief. But I don't want to mess around with that crap anymore. You know what I want to mess around with? The belief that I matter, whether I achieve something or not. Or the belief that we all deserve to be loved. Or how about the belief of hope? That's something I want to mess with. Believing that things can get better, that I can make them better. And if each of you can do that, if you can truly do that, can't nobody rip that apart. This little speech puts the team's mind back on track. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.